Right, so those were reactions coming into the state of affairs in the national capital.
First, taking down content which is critical of the Bharatiya Janata Party and its leadership. Post any content on its platform, Instagram, without any of its filtration algorithms kicking in. The report went on to cite alleged internal correspondence of Meta to justify its claims, alleging I had used said privileges to take down a total of 705 posts to date. On October 11, 2022, Meta's communication head, Mr. Andy Stone, issued a categorical denial and stated that the documents presented by The Wire in its report were fabricated and that the excheck status had been mischaracterized. Once Meta issued this statement, The Wire should have at least paused its coverage on this issue and commenced an internal audit. Instead, on the same day, it went on to publish yet another malicious report claiming to have accessed further internal emails of Meta employees, namely those exchanged between Andy Stone and his team, purportedly trying to cover up. Finally, on October 27, 2022, after scathing public scrutiny and the exposure of significant fabrication of dates, times and content in its alleged proof, The Wire publicly apologized to its readers and retracted the stories about MCheck and Meta. However, even while retracting the story, The Wire refrained from apologizing to me, despite maligning and tarnishing my reputation and causing serious harm to my professional career. My role requires me to vociferously advocate the BJP's point of view on national issues across platforms. This role is based on trust and camaraderie between me and my interlocutors across platforms, and more importantly, with the public. However, The Wire's stories have vitiated the atmosphere and severely dented relationships and trust built over the years for me to carry out the functions of my responsibility. It is clear that The Wire and some unknown persons entered into a criminal conspiracy with the intent to malign and tarnish my reputation, deliberately inserted my name into a story and fabricated evidence to implicate me. This also undermines the democratic and informed choices that the public makes through a carefully calibrated campaign of disinformation and calumny, and does irreparable harm to the democratic right of dissent. Consequently, I am left with no option other than to seek appropriate legal remedies against The Wire and its management and reporters. As mentioned yesterday, I will lodge an FIR with the concerned police station under sections that deal with forgery, forgery for the purposes of cheating, forgery to harm reputation, defamation, cheating, and criminal conspiracy, among others. Additionally, I will also initiate appropriate civil action for damages against The Wire and its associates. Thank you very much.
The chief of the BJP IT cell making a public statement that he will now decide to take legal action against The Wire. He'd issued a very brief press release yesterday evening the same day that The Wire had retracted and apologized for its reportage on Meta, in which, in one of its initial articles, it had reported that Amit Malviya had a disproportionate amount of influence when it came to taking down stories on Meta's social media platforms such as Instagram and Facebook. And now Amit Malviya is actually going to sue The Wire for forgery, defamation, among other sections, including criminal conspiracy, which falls under section 20B of the Indian Penal Code. So strong penal action will be initiated by the chief of the BJP IT cell against the digital portal The Wire. Now, Times Now yesterday, in fact, also sought a response from the editor of The Wire, Mr. Siddharth Vardarajan, and he said that The Wire and its team will be contemplating what kind of a response needs to actually be issued to this legal action being initiated by Mr. Amit Malviya. Now, Mr. Malviya categorically stated that in the apology that had been issued by The Wire to its readers yesterday on its website, there was absolutely no mention of him and absolutely no mention of any apology to Mr. Malviya, who had been named in that particular apology. Let me in fact go across to Mr. Rajgopalan for more on this. Mr. Rajgopalan, we also spoke to you yesterday for your response to The Wire's reportage. You said that legal action should be taken. Now Mr. Malviya has taken the first step towards doing that.
No, this legal action is definitely required because The Wire misled the nation. Not only misled the nation, it was a fake news factory. The news of Meta, the Facebook, they have to take a legal action on that. What I heard from US sources are Mr. Siddharth Varadarajan is a US citizen. Therefore, the Facebook is going to file a case in San Francisco and also in New York. It is going to be in hundreds of crores. What are they going to do? Because you do a fakery story and create a narrative that entire India is doing. That based on that, the Washington Post, Anna Ayub wrote about it, and many of the international press picked up the story. So what are they going to do now? That is what I said.
And this response from Amit Malviya, the fact that the legal action would be taken, and also very clearly explaining his position as to the kind of damage that has been done by Wire, Mr. Rajgopal.
The Wire, Gopal, I am telling you, the damage has been done by Wire immense. The way in which Mr. Siddharth Varadarajan created a fake narrative for the last 2 months, it has created a world over a bad impression about the government, about many issues concerning the social media. And not only this is not the first time. Even during Corona time, the Wire wrote about biotech. And the Wire wrote about Amit Shah. Now they are doing about Amit Malviya. So 3 times the fake news was spread by the news portal called The Wire. Therefore, Government of India should take a strict action, and Editors Guild should also condemn the Wire editorial policy. You can't create a narrative, false narrative.
Right. Very important a point that you've made as far as the Editors Guild of India, because in the past when Tech Fog reports, which have now been withdrawn, were put out, the Editors Guild has been quite vocal. But are we seeing the same kind of vocal position being taken now, Mr. Rajgopal?
Yeah, correct. The same position has been taken. And my another point is Indian Women Press Corps. They should come heavily on The Wire now. Why should they create another thing? The Association of Press Media, including Press Council. I was part of the Press Council and Press Association of India for a longer time during my days as a journalist. But those organizations have become deaf now. Why they are not condemning The Wire? There is a narrative against the government, and there should be some falsehood spread by The Wire. If it was truth, well and good. For example, you all do stories based on documents. Mr. Siddharth Varadarajan condemned that, when you called, Times Now called in October 16, Siddharth Varadarajan said Times Now will be liable for action. Now the table is turned against Mr. Siddharth Varadarajan. What is the journalism he has been doing? Creating an international, it has international ramifications, the falsehood.
Well, absolutely. And I think the larger question is that even the statement that has come in from Wire, talks about them being the victims. But the larger question of, the onus of ascertaining a fact or not, that lies ultimately with the journalists and the news organization. That responsibility does not seem to be taken in this kind of statement that we have seen being issued yesterday by the Wire. Mr. Rajgopal.
Well, yeah, correct. The fakery was done by the editor himself. That is why he is defending the story. Who is the victim here? Victim is the, India. The 130 crore people of India are the victim, because the Wire said on 3-4 occasions the Indian social media is done by one particular political party. How can he take all the Twitter handles and Facebook and Instagram people for a ride? So therefore, Mr. Siddharth Varadarajan, having apologized it, now he should take legal recourse. In fact, a police complaint should be filed by Amit Malviya. That is what I also heard, that tomorrow or day after tomorrow, Amit Malviya is going to file a police case with Delhi police against Mr. Siddharth Varadarajan and the editors and the Wire.
All right, Mr. Rajgopalan, thank you so much for joining us and sharing with us your perspective. Let's go across to Crispin. Crispin, I believe you have with you the tweets that have been put out by the Wire. Take us through what exactly the Wire has been saying.
Yes, Madhav, look at how this news break has exploded after Times Now broke it first. And this is the statement by the Wire that goes back to yesterday, October the 27th, and it says, journalists rely on sources for stories and do their best to verify material they receive. Technological evidence more complicated, and the usual due diligence may not always reveal the fraud perpetrated upon a publication. This is what happened to us. In the life of any publication, an occasion may come when it is misinformed. The moral test is whether the publication persists or speaks the truth. We chose the latter when we realized we had been given fraudulent information. Once again, claiming that it is them who are in fact the victims who were at the receiving end of this fraudulent information. Whether the person who brought all the material to the Wire deceived us at anyone else's behest, and this is the most important part, Madhav, or acted on his own, is a matter that we will be subjected to judicial process in due course. The malign intent to discredit the Wire is obvious, and so he's talking about the malintent here to discredit the Wire, which is very obvious, and other than this, we have nothing to say. So that's the statement that Wire put out yesterday.
Well, the malintent to defame the Wire may be one aspect of it. The larger question, though, is what has the Wire done to, in fact, defend its own reputation? Because here, what is being alleged is a very, very serious crime of actually fabricating, or rather defending through fabrication, story after story. And that's a very, very serious charge that now the Wire is looking at. Because now there's legal action that is also being proposed by Amit Malviya.
Absolutely. While legal action has been the process has already been initiated by Amit Malviya, and we heard it from Amit Malviya itself. Siddharth will also be joining us in a bit to really put this in perspective, because he's been tracking the story very, very closely. And as far as the Wire's response is concerned, it's of utmost importance here, because here I want to once again focus on this particular paragraph of the statement, wherein the Wire says whether the person who brought all the material to the Wire deceived us at anyone else's behest or acted on his a matter that will be subjected to judicial process in due course. So that's what it's maintaining now. Interestingly, Madhav, if we take this back to a couple of days ago, the Wire was extremely confident of its sources, of its reportage, and was consistently ready to back the reportage. So why this U-turn and why this admission?
On that, because time after time, Times Now has contacted the Wire. You've spoken to Mr. Varadarajan, but they have rather been defending their position each time round. Take us through what exactly the Wire has said when Times Now has contacted them in the past, and also how they have defended their stories publicly.
Yeah, so we've had multiple communications. The first, of course, took place on the 14th of October, where we had sent them a detailed questionnaire, Madhav, over the 2 articles that had already published and put out on their website. And Meta had in fact rebutted several of their claims, claiming that a lot of the information that they put out was in fact fabricated. Back then, Mr. Varadarajan, in email response to me, categorically defended both the reporter as well as the story, claiming that they have the evidence at their disposal to disprove Meta's claims. Now, that tone and tenor of defiance and categorical defense, Madhav, completely changed 13 days later when we once again contacted The Wire for their response after there was news that Amit Malviya is considering suing them for defamation. And this is after The Wire had put out an apology and retracted all the stories that it had put out on Meta. And then Mr. Varadarajan actually told us that he's consulting his team on the possibility of framing a response to this defamation case. He also said, when specifically asked, do you believe that Wire has actually indulged in what many call a wholesale fabrication? Mr. Varadarajan actually told us that there's no such thing. That's the long and short of it. There's no wholesale fabrication, and whatever has to be defended in court will be done. So that was their response. They did back down, but nevertheless, they claim they're victims in this case, Madhav, and not perpetrators of this alleged hoax.
Well, absolutely. And in fact, let's listen to what Amit Malviya now has to say. Siddharth Alia stays on with us. This is what Amit Malviya said a short while earlier. Listen.
While retracting the story, the Wire refrained from apologizing to me, despite maligning and tarnishing my reputation and causing serious harm to my professional career. My role requires me to vociferously advocate the BJP's point of view on national issues across platforms. This role is based on trust and camaraderie between me and my interlocutors across platforms, and more importantly, with the public. However, the Wire's stories have vitiated the atmosphere and severely dented relationships and trust built over the years for me to carry out the functions of my responsibility. It is clear that the Wire and some unknown persons entered into a criminal conspiracy with the intent to malign and tarnish my reputation, deliberately inserted my name into a story and fabricated evidence to implicate me. This also undermines the democratic and informed choices that the public makes through a carefully calibrated campaign of disinformation and calumny, and does irreparable harm to the democratic right of dissent. Consequently, I am left with no option other than to seek appropriate legal remedies against the Wire and its management and reporters. As mentioned yesterday, I will lodge an FIR with the concerned police station under sections that deal with forgery, forgery for the purposes of cheating, forgery to harm reputation, defamation, cheating, and criminal conspiracy, among others. Additionally, I will also initiate appropriate civil action for damages against the Wire and its associates.
All right, so the big difference today, Siddharth, is that now Amit Malviya has said that not only has he suffered or at some level or the other it has dented the trust and his ability to carry out his role, but also says that it's clear that the Wire and unknown persons entered into a criminal conspiracy. And this conspiracy is what has resulted in his name being included in a story which he says has not just been retracted, but he hasn't even been apologized to for.
Absolutely, Madhav. That statement is light as day, because normally when it comes to filing defamation proceedings, you invoke sections of 499 as well as 500 of the IPC claiming malified intent to defame somebody's reputation. But Malviya has even gone a step further, Madhav. He's invoked section 120B for criminal conspiracy against Wire as well as unknown persons. At least that seems to be the indication when he eventually proceeds to file a police complaint, because he clearly mentioned the words criminal conspiracy. He claims that these articles were fabricated, the evidences were fabricated after having mentioned him in the first couple of articles where they claimed that Amit Malviya wields a disproportionate amount of influence in his capacity as the BJP IT cell chief to actually take down posts on Meta platforms using disproportionate influence because he happens to be a member of the establishment and that these posts can be taken down without review. Another very unsubstantiated allegation made in those articles, Madhav, is that Malviya had been single-handedly responsible for taking down about 705 posts put out on social media that were seemingly satirical or targeting the government of the day in India. They had not provided any evidence to that effect. And the one piece of evidence that they claimed they had at their disposal to suggest that Malviya wielded this kind of influence also turned out to be fake, according to Meta. So there are layers and layers here, Madhav, about alleged fakery which the Wire has been exposed for, and now criminal action has been initiated by Mr. Malviya.
Well, absolutely. And in fact, let's listen to that conversation you had earlier with Siddharth Varadarajan, who is the editor of The Wire.
Mr. Varadarajan, hi, good evening. My name is Siddharth Talia. I'm calling you from Times Now, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I just wanted your reaction now that Mr. Amit Malviya has decided to take The Wire to court and file a defamation case. I just wanted your response to that development.
Well, I've just seen his and so we will handle it when it comes. I mean, in the sense that we're just waiting to see what happens. In the sense that I just saw his tweet. Frankly, I have no reaction as of now.
Okay, and do you believe that, given the fact that you've retracted the concerned pieces about Meta that had been written and also now initiated a review, you've also apologized, how do you think this will pan out now that a defamation suit has been filed? What are you contemplating, sir?
As I said, I've just seen the news, so I'm not contemplating anything.
Okay.
So I need time to look at this and discuss with my colleagues.
Mm-hmm. And a final question to you about the statement.
You can check with me later.
Absolutely. One final question, sir, about the statement that you've put out. You claim that you were deceived by the person investigating this entire matter on your behalf, on the Wire's behalf, as far as the Meta reportage is concerned. Are you convinced that you were deceived? Because there are enough people who are also saying that this could be a wholesale kind of a fabrication on a large scale, that it might not just be a bona fide error. What's your response to that specific claim?
No, that's crazy. This allegation is it's laughable. So,
okay.
So what we've said in our statement is what the facts are.
Okay.
And that is the long and short of the matter.
And a final question about the tech fog reportage as well, Mr. Vardhan.